Welcome to this episode of CGTN live streaming. I am Xu Xinchen. I'm here standing on the top of an office building in Dalian port in Dalian, a northeastern Chinese port city. So right behind me that we can see a cargo ship, the Peak Pegasus. And that is a cargo ship made its name last month, as some media picked it up and reported that it was racing to deliver a shipment before new Beijing tariffs took effect last month. So that ship is fully loaded with 70,000 tons of US soybeans, and it was scheduled to arrive on July the 6th, short after US President Donald Trump imposed the first round of tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods. And the ship arrived during the afternoon near Dalian on July the 6th. However, that's when China imposed a 25% tariff. So what does it mean? By docking the ship today, it means the owner of the cargo has to pay additional tariffs as much as $6 million. So amid the current trade tension, and by raising that China raised its tariff on American soybean, and soon after that, a lot of Chinese companies halted their U.S. orders for U.S. soybeans. So here in China, the country needs about 100 million tons of soybeans imports to meet its demand annually, and 1/3 of that demand should be coming from the United States. Just amid the current escalating trade tension between the two countries, China decided to raise tariffs on U.S. soybeans in retaliation to Trump's similar measures on Chinese goods. I spoke to the purchaser of the 70,000 tons of U.S. soybeans, their Sino grain, and they told me that they are now going to pay for that tariffs out of their pockets. And so basically the ship departed from Seattle, US early June. So and it crossed the ocean and reached near the Dalian port around early July. But the main reason for the delay for the docking is just because during the trade tension between China and the U.S., a lot of Chinese companies, especially those soybean traders, and they fear they are going to face shortage of soybean imports during the later half of the year. So a lot of them bumped up their soybean import orders around July or in June, and that caused an increased number of ships coming into this port and trying to unload their cargo into China, and that caused a temporary congestion around the port here. And so when Peak Pegasus arrived at Dalian, it has to wait for days, and in fact over a month, in order to be able to actually to dock. So basically the ship docked around midnight on Sunday, and then it went through customs and the security checks, and then it started the offload process around 4 o'clock this morning. So due to immigration policies and as well as security reasons, that we cannot get too close to the ship anymore at the moment. But we can see on the screen that is a pretty big ship, in fact, and on the control tower that it reads safety first, no smoking. And then we can see this crane tower at the beginning of the ship, and that's the offloading machine that the port is using. So basically is a tube that it will suck all the soybean stored in the ship out. So the whole process is actually fully automatic, and there's not really a manual labor required at the moment on deck. So because the 70,000 tons of US soybeans, it will probably require about 6 days for the ship to be actually fully unloaded. And also I spoke to Sino Grain, who is the purchaser of soybean carried on the Peak Pegasus. This probably won't be the last ship of US soybeans coming into China this year, but definitely demand for US soybeans is decreasing as after Beijing's 25% tariff on US soybeans. But this won't be the last ship yet, and there are still a few ships loaded with US soybeans waiting to be docked here in China. A lot of those are orders already being paid or being signed before July the 6th. So come back to the demand and supply situation here in China about soybeans. As I have mentioned, the country needs about 100 million tons of soybean imports to meet its ends, to meet its end. So right now, a lot of companies, what they are trying to do is they are trying to increase their orders from like Brazil, Argentina, and Russia. But if we look at throughout the whole year, the 12 months, so during the third quarter is when the Brazilian soybeans or Argentina soybeans from South American countries in season. That's when actually people see a lot increased influx of soybeans from these regions. But then in the fourth quarter and also the first quarter in the next year, that's the 2 quarters usually see more US soybeans. So some firms do feel that pressure from the current trade tension between China and the US, and there might be a temporary shortage for soybeans through in the later month in this year. So what a lot of companies trying to do is trying to import as much as Brazilian soybeans or Argentina soybeans as possible, and they are also trying to reach out to different channels to expand more channels to import soybeans from like Russia, Ukraine, and countries from the Black Sea. And then some other companies, what they are also trying to do, they are trying to import soybean pulps directly instead of just import soybean products. So soybeans are crucial for the production of cooking oil and making livestock feeds. And China has a huge population. So that agricultural produce is very high in demand. But there are ways to help reduce the effect from the higher tariff on US soybeans, and some companies are confident that they can endure the current trade conflict with the US, and they will be able to maintain a healthy supply and demand. And some firms told me that the short term they feel more pressure in short term, and in longer term they can adjust to this newer model to sourcing their soybeans from countries other than the US in order to meet its demand. However, there are still logistical challenges. For example, like soybeans from countries around the Black Sea area. First, we need to build logistic facilities in order to get the soybeans here. And then for a lot of those local farmers, even though they have that capacity, but they don't have they have the capacity to help China fill the demand, but it has not yet started planning at the moment. And speaking of Argentina, it actually reduced its production this year, but it might bump up again next year or in the coming years. And so some firms they feel less pressured in a longer term. But then right now, just over just a bit a month after Trump's initial round of tariffs on Chinese products, and then China's retaliatory measures took effect on July the 6th. So the short term effect might be a little bit more pressing on Chinese soybean companies than speaking of the in longer term. So as I have mentioned, so a lot of people really want to know what's the fate of the soybeans coming out of the Peak Pegasus, and what a Sino grain will do in order to absorb this cargo. As I have mentioned, the Sino grain is going to pay off the tariffs out of his pocket, and the Sino grain also said that it is trying to find alternative sources to help it to maintain a healthy supply and demand balance at the moment, and to find alternative sources for replacing U.S. soybeans. And we're going to keep watching on the development on the trade tension between China and the U.S., especially focusing on the current soybean situation, and hopefully to join you with the next live streaming with CGTN.